So then, in the next World Cup in 2010, we have Uruguay historic run, and the last time I checked, we have a Uruguayan as a co-host of this podcast. So, Martin,
Really?
remind us again: how old were you in 2010? How do you remember this World Cup?
Every
And
time.
the most important question: you have a gun to your head, and you have to pick one to be the striker of your team, Suarez or Forlan. You go.
I'll say stuff that you want to hear. First of
Okay.
all, Forlan or Suarez, I'm taking Forlan.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And do you know why? Do you know why?
Why?
Because Diego Forlan is a player who, from the beginning to the end of his career, has accepted the role that he had. You know, what Suarez? I think that Suarez is a great player, of course, no doubt about that. But he's a great player partly because he has a huge ego. This World Cup, he might have gone to the World Cup, to the 2026 World Cup. Like he's kind of in good condition still, but his ego is so big that he wouldn't be able to accept a secondary role. So this causes him problems with Bielsa and everything, and obviously he wasn't. I mean, he didn't ended up going, to the World Cup. So for that reason, I'm taking Forlan, and also because of crazy, the crazy performance in the 2010 World Cup. That was just amazing. The best player in the tournament for sure.
And actually, and then I'd like your opinion on this as also I'd like to hear Andrea about it. But to me, this World Cup, this Uruguay run of the World Cup, showed two different sides of it because Forlan was like elected the MVP of the tournament. The guy, like he played monstrously, he was the best player of the tournament by far. But then you also have another side, which is Suarez saving the ball from Ghana with his hands, which is like so much in Brazil we say raça, which is like grit,
Yes.
in Uruguay, in Spanish, in the Uruguay culture, I think you say the garra charrua or something like that. Like Suarez represented that, and then Forlan represented like skill and performance. How do you see those two guys? They kind of like are opposite to each other in that sense.
Yeah, I think that they were opposite, but they complemented themselves. Only this World Cup. This was the only time that they were able to complement themselves. And I think that partly it was because Forlan was the actual reference,
Superstar.
The superstar. Like Suarez was still like developing himself as a player. I think that Forlan, to some extent, he's the kind of player that improves the rest of the team.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of Uruguay's success. I think that there's an interesting thing to see in the image that's below Forlan. If you look closely to Suarez doing the handball, you will see Fuchile, which is a left back that we had back in the day. He played for Porto, basically.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do the exact same thing as Suarez, but he missed it. Like, he's probably the worst goalkeeper that we have ever in life. Like, when you're trying to save the ball with your hands and you missed it. Like,
yeah. Andre, how do you remember? Did you watch this game live? How do you remember this match, man?
Yes, I watched this game live mainly because, as I mentioned, we are talking with you guys offline. In 2010, I was living in the Netherlands, and Suarez was a player of Ajax at that time. Yes, he was a player of Ajax at that time. And when I lived in the Netherlands, it was the team that I had the biggest connection with was Ajax. So I was watching that game mainly because of him. He was an Ajax star, a great run there in the Eredivisie. And I remember that also after beating Brazil, the Netherlands went on and beat Uruguay too. So I was watching Uruguay's games closely during that World Cup.
Yeah.
And on a note, I think it was the most significant World Cup for me. The world, I remember it, being in another country and having that country play my country and then losing and then having to go to school. And I promised my dean, the coordinator for Portuguese, but the dean, the guy that I promised him I would shave my head if Brazil lost, and I didn't do it. So it was like teasy, and every day they reminded me of that match. And it was like I was not Dutch, but I was also with Dutch friends, so I was happy with the run and unhappy with the loss. So it was very significant for me as a human being. And it was also the year that my brother and my sister were born. So 2010, only great things.
I don't know if you guys feel the same. But to me, and this is something actually that Martin we've been talking about this, and I think that Martin's mentioned this in his last video, because this 2026 World Cup doesn't feel welcoming. It doesn't feel like this congregation spirit. And I think to me, at least to me, the 2010 World Cup was maybe the last one that really had this spirit, to be like the cup of the world, if you know what I'm saying.
Possibly.
There's this happy spirit around the sport.
Possibly.
Now that you're saying this stuff about the World Cup and not being like open to the whole world.
Yeah.
The Uruguay national team is having trouble to enter the USA right now because they didn't get like some specific papers on time to America. I mean, they are staying in Mexico and they are traveling to the US every time they have like a match. And as they are playing tomorrow, they flew to America and they are having trouble right now to enter to America. So
Oh my
we don't know
goodness.
what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. But then again, actually, before we move on to the next one, some final thoughts from you, Martin. Like this historic run from Uruguay. I mean, you were a child, yeah, but what did this teach you? You know, when the World Cup ended, what was your vision of the Uruguay national team? What did they represent to you?
You know, there's many things to say about this, but basically, the generation that came after these events, they kind of were a bit, let's say, confused about what the hell was happening because we were entering an era where Uruguay was supposed to win games. You know, we won the Copa America in 2011, and we became a good national team. If you look at Uruguay's footballing history, from the 70s to 2010, we were basically horrible. You know, we were winning some Copa Americas, but international, like seriously international in the big stage, we weren't like playing good. Like some players would refuse to play for the national team. There were problems and everything. And that was until we got Maestro Tavares to get us to the 2010 semifinals. So I think that this game, although I was very young and I don't remember much about it, it really defined the generation, you know? Like and I think that's really similar to what happened to Argentina in 2022 because they won the World Cup and suddenly being Argentinian became trendy, you know? Like on TikTok, you see many people super Argentina related. Basically, everything became like related to being Argentinian as a really good thing. And in 2010, it really happened with Uruguay. Like the whole music scene, everything began to get much more attention because people were happy about being Uruguayan. We were happy about telling the world that we were the ones supposed to win the 2010 World Cup, and we got robbed.